He sat beside the remains of his small ship, breathing slowly through his cracked helmet. The crash had damaged his oxygen controls, but luckily the moon's air was just barely safe to breathe. Strange clouds moved slowly above him, glowing, with soft green and blue colors. Trees with silver leaves surrounded the crash site. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. He looked at his communicator again. Still no signal. Ravi stood up, holding his side where a sharp piece of metal had cut through. His suit. It wasn't deep, but it hurt. He had to move. Staying near the broken ship would do nothing. The sun here was hot and close. He needed shelter, water, maybe help. If anyone even lived here. This moon wasn't on any main chart. His mission was only to pass by and check for minerals. But now, he was stranded. He picked up a small pack of supplies and walked toward the forest, each step slow and careful. Strange animal sounds echoed now and then. He saw odd-looking birds with glowing eyes flying above the trees. Insects with thin wings buzzed past his ears. As he moved deeper, he noticed something unexpected. There was a path. It was not made of metal or concrete, but of smooth, dark stones, placed in perfect lines. Vines grew around the edges. The path curved through the trees gently. Someone or something had built it. Ravi followed the path. Hours passed. His legs were tired, his lips dry. But just as he thought he might fall, he saw something up ahead. A small structure. It looked like a dome made of woven branches, covered in soft blue moss. Lights glowed gently around it. It was quiet and peaceful. He stepped closer, unsure what to say or do. He raised a hand and called out, "Hello? I need help." There was no answer. Then he heard a sound, a gentle rustling from the side. He turned and saw her. A young, beautiful alien woman stood a few steps away. Her skin was a smooth, pale silver with soft patterns that looked like flowing water. She had no arms. Her body was shaped differently from a human's, but her face was calm, her eyes large and soft like the moonlight. She had a soft, natural beauty that made Ravi pause. She said nothing at first. She only tilted her head and looked at him carefully. Ravi spoke again, this time more gently. "I don't want to harm you. I crashed. My ship is broken. I'm just trying to survive." She moved closer, not afraid. Then she pointed to herself with her long tail and said, "Neera." Her voice was light and smooth, almost like music. "Ravi," he replied, placing his hand on his chest. She nodded. Then, using her tail and her mouth, she picked up a wooden container and offered it to him. Inside was a clear liquid that smelled like fresh water. Ravi took a sip. It was cool and sweet. He smiled, grateful. "Thank you, Neera." She didn't answer with words, but she smiled too. It was warm and full of kindness. Neera turned and began walking toward the dome. She glanced back once as if asking him to follow. Ravi followed her. Inside the dome was simple, but beautiful. There were soft lights along the walls, and the floor was made of smooth wood. She pointed toward a soft spot for him to sit. Then, using only her mouth and tail, she began to move objects around, bringing food, lighting a soft fire, and even offering him clean cloth for his wound. Ravi watched in silence. Everything she did was with precision and grace. She had no arms, yet she worked faster and more smoothly than most humans. He couldn't stop himself from asking, "How do you do all this?" She looked at him and replied in a quiet voice, "I don't have arms, but I can do it with my mouth." Her eyes showed no shame, only pride. Ravi lowered his head slightly in respect. "You're amazing," he said honestly. She smiled again and sat across from him. The firelight danced between them. For the first time since the crash, Ravi felt safe. That night, They didn't speak much. But the silence between them was not heavy. It was peaceful. As Ravi lay down to sleep, he looked at the alien stars above through the open dome roof. He didn't know where this moon was exactly. He didn't know if help would come. But he knew one thing: he wasn't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. The next morning, Ravi woke up slowly. The soft light of the alien sun passed through the dome's roof, shining gently on his face. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he remembered the crash, the strange moon, the peaceful dome, and Neera. He sat up and looked around. Neera was already awake. She was outside, sitting near a wide stone table. Using her mouth and tail, she was arranging plants, leaves, and small stones into a pattern. Her movements were slow, careful, and focused. Ravi watched her, amazed once again. She picked up a round fruit with her tail, held it gently with her toes, and peeled it using her teeth with great skill. She then placed a few slices on a flat leaf and brought them to him. He smiled. "Thank you." She nodded and sat beside him, holding her own fruit with her tail. They ate quietly, the only sounds being the soft chirps of nearby creatures and the rustling of trees. After breakfast, Ravi pointed to her tools and drawings. "What are you making?" Neera looked at him, then used her mouth to draw a simple map on the ground using a sharp stick. She made a small mark for her dome, then a larger circle far away. She spoke gently. "Core." Ravi repeated the word. "Core. What is it?" She paused for a moment, thinking. Then she made a movement with her tail, spinning in a circle, then pointed to the sky, then the ground. "Core," she said again. "Old brain." Ravi understood she was talking about something big, something intelligent, maybe even alive. "An old machine? A control system? Is it dangerous?" he asked. Neera shook her head. "Sleeping, but broken." That caught Ravi's interest. He was a technician, after all. Fixing things was what he did. "You want to go there?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "But we'll need supplies, tools, and we must be careful." Neera smiled softly. She stood up and, with her tail, pulled a large wooden case from the back of her dome. Inside were strange tools, some made of metal, others of glass and wood. She used her mouth to pick up one tool and began to clean it with a cloth. Ravi noticed how fast and precise she was. He spoke with wonder. "You really can do anything with just your mouth and tail." She looked at him and replied in her soft voice. "We learn from birth. No arms. Only the mouth, the tail, and the mind." Ravi nodded slowly. "The mind. Yes, you're very smart." Neera gave him a small smile. She didn't speak again, but the look in her eyes said she appreciated his words. That day they worked together. Ravi fixed his damaged tablet using wire from the ship. Neera helped him by holding wires and screws in place with her tail while using her mouth to twist pieces together. They didn't need many words. They moved like a team. In the evening, Neera showed him a small glowing stone. She placed it in front of a round mirror and spoke a single word. The mirror lit up, showing moving images, parts of the moon's history. He saw visions of the Valari, her people. They were peaceful, full of wisdom, and lived close to nature. He saw how they had once used the core to control weather, light, and the balance of life on the moon. But over time, the system began to fail. The elders stopped using it, fearing it might break everything. Now it rested beneath the ground, forgotten. Ravi turned to her. "You want to fix it, don't you?" Neera nodded. She used her mouth to pick up a piece of metal and pointed to it. "Your kind made this." Ravi looked closely. It was a part from a human satellite, marked with Earth's language. That surprised him. "Humans were here before?" he asked. Neera nodded again. Long ago. They helped. Then, gone. Ravi felt something deep in his chest. Maybe he wasn't the first human to visit this moon. Maybe his people had a role here long before him. Now, it was his turn to help again. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Ravi sat outside the dome with Neera beside him. She was humming softly. No words, just sound. It was calm and peaceful. Ravi turned to her. "You could have ignored me," he said. "You could have left me at the crash site. But you helped." Neera looked at him and simply said, "You looked lost. I know that feeling." Her words were soft but strong. Ravi didn't ask what she meant. He could feel it. This moon, her people, they had been forgotten too. But now maybe things could change. As he lay down to rest again, Ravi thought about the journey ahead. They would travel to the core, face old systems, maybe dangers, but he wasn't afraid, because he had Neera with him, and even though she had no arms, she had something far greater, a sharp mind, a strong heart, and the will to make a difference. Ravi walked beside Neera as the two moved deeper into the forest. The sky above had turned a soft purple, and the light from the sun was fading. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, and the ground was covered in thick roots and soft moss. The path was long, but Neera moved confidently. She had tied a light pack to her back using her tail and shoulders. Ravi offered to carry it, but she smiled and shook her head. "I'm strong," she said softly. Ravi didn't argue. He had learned by now. Neera could do more with her mouth and tail than most people could with both hands. They followed an old trail made of flat stones. Many were cracked and covered in vines. Trees leaned over the path as if guarding something ancient. Hours passed. Then, as they climbed a small hill, the trees opened up to reveal a wide open space. At the center stood a massive stone door half buried in the ground. Strange symbols glowed faintly across its surface. Neera stopped. She looked at Ravi and spoke one word. "Core." Ravi felt a chill. The place looked untouched for years, maybe centuries, yet the air around it felt alive, like the building itself was watching them. They stepped closer. Ravi ran his fingers across the symbols. They were smooth, almost metallic. He pulled out his tablet and scanned the door. "It's reacting to energy," he said. "There's a power source inside." Neera stepped beside him and gently touched a nearby stone with her mouth. She whispered a word in her language. The stone began to glow. Slowly, the door opened. A soft sound filled the air, like wind passing through a tunnel. The light from inside was pale blue. The air smelled old but clean. Ravi turned on his torch and followed Neera inside. The passage led downward. Walls were lined with old machines covered in dust and vines. Some blinked with weak lights. Others were silent. "This place is huge," Ravi whispered. Neera nodded. "Core sleeps below." As they moved deeper, Ravi began to understand just how advanced the Valari had once been. The machines were not primitive. They were built with care, with beauty and purpose. At last, they entered a large, round chamber. In the center stood a tall pillar of crystal and metal. It pulsed slowly with light. All around it, cables connected to the walls. Above, the ceiling was shaped like a dome with stars drawn across it. Neera approached the pillar. She placed her mouth gently near a glowing ring on its surface and whispered something again. The pillar lit up brighter. A soft voice echoed through the room. Mechanical, but not cold. Valari presence confirmed. Human presence detected. Core activating. Ravi stepped back in surprise. "It knows I'm human," the voice spoke again. "This unit was created by Valari science, supported by human engineering. Joint access required for full control." Ravi turned to Neera. They built this together? Nira nodded. Long ago, before silence. The voice continued. System damaged. Balance failing. Repair needed. Moon's surface will become unstable in 3 cycles. Ravi felt his heart race. 3 cycles? That's only a few days. He looked at the console. A screen blinked with strange writing. Ravi touched it, and slowly it began to translate. Into words he could read. Warning, weather control offline. Gravity pulse weakening, biosystems unstable. This is serious, he said. If we don't fix it, the whole moon could break apart. Nira stood quietly, listening. Ravi pointed at the controls. We need to connect to the system. I can try from here, but I think it needs a second user. The core spoke again. Valari input required. Must be direct. Must be precise. Ravi looked at Nira. You'll have to do it, he said. But the system isn't built for someone without arms. Nira didn't answer. She stepped forward and examined the controls. She bent close, held a small stylus in her mouth, and tapped. One of the screens. A new window opened. She moved slowly, testing each command. Ravi watched, amazed again. You're really doing it, she smiled, still working. I said I could. For the next hour, they worked together. Ravi used his hands. Nira used her mouth and tail. They learned the system screen by screen. The core guided them, correcting mistakes gently. But it wasn't easy. Some areas of the system were locked. Ravi tried using his tablet, but it needed codes that were lost long ago. Nira looked at the wall where old symbols were carved. She walked over, stood on her tail tip, and carefully read the lines out loud. Each word lit up part of the system. The core spoke again. Old language accepted. Secondary code unlocked. Together, they made progress. Finally, the core said, partial access restored. Repairs possible. Final activation requires joint connection. Ravi looked at Nira. We can do this, he said. She nodded slowly. Her eyes were calm but focused. But we'll have to act fast, Ravi continued. 3 cycles isn't much time. If we don't fix the core, the moon might not survive, Nira whispered. Then we won't fail. Ravi looked around the chamber. Dusty, silent, forgotten by time. And yet here they were. A human technician and an armless alien woman working together where 2 worlds had once met. He smiled, and deep inside, for the first time since the crash, he felt something more than hope. He felt purpose. The next morning, the core room was quiet again, but the soft blue light still pulsed from the central pillar. Ravi sat cross-legged near the console, looking at the interface system on his tablet. Wires and parts were spread out on the floor, around him. He wiped his forehead and took a breath. This is more complex than I thought, he said. Nira was sitting across from him, holding a thin tool gently in her mouth. With slow care, she handed it to him using her tail. He smiled. Thanks. They had worked through the night. The core had shown them which systems were most damaged: gravity balance, heat control, and air filtration. Without fixing these, the moon's surface could become unstable. But there was a problem. To repair the core completely, both Ravi and Nira had to use the interface at the same time. The system had been designed for 2 species, one human, with hands, and one Valari, with their own kind of physical control. But the design had assumed Valari users with tail extensions or special suits, tools Nira didn't have, and she didn't have arms. Ravi stared at the dual interface panel. It required touch and pressure at the same time. He could manage one side, but how could Nira handle the other? He looked at her. We need to build something new. She tilted her head, curious. Ravi began sketching. A device that lets you press and guide controls with your mouth and tail at the same time. Not too heavy, not too complex. Nira came closer. She picked up his sketch with her mouth and studied it. Then she took a piece of chalk and drew next to it. Her lines were clear and thoughtful. She adjusted the shape, showing a lighter curve at the front. Ravi nodded. "You're right. That would work better." The next few hours were spent building the tool. Ravi cut wires and bent small parts using his toolkit. Neera used her tail to hold pieces in place and her mouth to attach tiny fasteners. At one point, a screw rolled off the table and landed behind a machine. Ravi groaned. "We need that one." Before he could stand, Neera was already on it. She bent down, gripped the small screw perfectly with her lips, and brought it back without a single shake. Ravi looked at her with admiration. "You could be a technician, you know," he said. Neera gave a soft smile. "I learn fast." Finally, by evening, the device was ready. It was a small, flexible panel with soft sensors that could respond to tongue pressure and tail taps. Ravi carefully placed it on the second interface station and connected the wires. "All right," he said. "Time for a test." He sat down at his console. Neera moved to hers. She gently placed the mouth control in place and adjusted her posture. Her tail curved behind her. Ready. Ravi gave a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. Both began the test. Lights appeared on the screens, showing shapes and commands. Ravi tapped buttons with his fingers. Neera used the mouthpiece, shifting. Pressure gently. Her tail moved with amazing control, tapping side switches in rhythm. The system responded. The core spoke in its smooth voice. Input detected. Dual command mode successful. Sync rate 93%. Ravi smiled wide. "It's working!" But just then the screen flickered. A warning flashed. Error, connection unstable. Precision required. Ravi frowned. "What happened?" Neera paused, then tried again. This time she adjusted her tail taps, slower, more exact. Her mouthpiece moved in small steps. She was not just reacting, she was learning. Ravi watched with respect. Her mouth moved across the sensor with perfect care. Her tail tapped in smooth beats. The error vanished. Sync rate 98%. Connection stable. The core spoke again. Excellent balance. Continue program testing. Ravi almost laughed from relief. "You're incredible," he said. "You just did something most humans couldn't do with both hands and 10 fingers. Neera looked at him and said calmly, "I told you, I can do it with my mouth." Her words were not prideful. They were simply true. Over the next 2 hours, they ran more tests. They opened side systems, checked weather controls, and restarted the airflow modules. The core continued giving feedback. One by one, the lights on the main pillar turned green. They were doing it step by step, fixing a system built by 2 ancient races. At one point, Ravi leaned back, tired but smiling. He looked at her and said, "Neera, this moon wouldn't survive without you." Neera's expression stayed calm, but her eyes showed something warmer, maybe gratitude, maybe quiet joy. "You help me," she said softly. "I help you. This is balance." Ravi nodded. Yes, balance. They worked into the night again, resting only when the system reached a pause. As they sat under the dome later, Ravi shared part of his story. How he came from a quiet Earth station. How no one really noticed his work. Just a small technician, fixing cables and systems behind the scenes. "People never see the quiet ones," he said. Neera looked at him and said, "But they hold everything together." Ravi smiled. That sentence stayed with him. The stars were bright above. Tomorrow they would begin the final repair steps. Time was short. The core had warned them of rising heat under the moon's crust. But tonight, Ravi felt ready, because beside him sat someone who had no arms, no fame, and no special tools, yet she was doing more than anyone had ever done, with her mouth, with her mind, and with quiet strength that never needed to shout. Ravi and Neera were preparing the final system test inside the core chamber when a low sound echoed through the stone walls. It wasn't from the machines. It was coming from outside. Slow, steady footsteps. Neera's body tensed. She looked at Ravi and said only one word. Elders. Ravi stood up quickly. Is that good or bad? Neera didn't answer. The sound grew louder until 3 tall figures entered the chamber. They wore long robes made of dark cloth and leaves. Their faces were calm but serious. One of them, older than the rest, had eyes that looked sharp and heavy with years of wisdom. He stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. Neera, you left without permission. Ravi could not understand the language fully, but he understood the tone. Neera bowed her head slightly and replied in the Valari language. Her words were soft, but steady. She explained everything: the crash, the help, the core, the danger. The elder turned his eyes to Ravi. So, this is the human, he said, in clear, slow English. Ravi stepped forward. Yes, I'm Ravi. I didn't mean to come here. My ship crashed. But your world, it's in danger. We're trying to stop that. The elder looked around the chamber. This place is not for the living anymore. The core should remain asleep. Ravi shook his head. But if it sleeps, the moon dies. The core said there are only 2 cycles left before the system fails. The other elders whispered quietly among themselves. One of them, a younger one, seemed unsure. The old leader raised his voice again. Your kind came here long ago, helped us build, then left us. And now, you wake the core again? Ravi's voice stayed calm. I didn't come to control. I came to survive. But Neera chose to help me. And now, we're trying to help this moon. The elder's eyes narrowed. Neera is young. She does not understand the cost of touching old power. Ravi looked at Neera. She didn't speak, but her eyes showed she was not afraid. The elder stepped closer to her. You are Valari. You are not meant to touch this system. You have no arms, no tools, no right to control machines from the past. Neera lifted her head slowly. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She walked to the interface, gently picked up the sensor with her mouth, and activated the console with smooth, perfect motions. Her tail moved in rhythm, pressing 2 switches in order. The screen blinked green. Core response. Valari input detected. Level 3 command approved. The elder looked shocked. Ravi smiled. She's not only doing it, she's doing it better than anyone. Neera looked at the elders and spoke in her language. She said that the core needed 2 minds, human and Valari. She said the moon was not only a place of memory, but of future. She said silence was not safety. Silence was loss. The younger elder stepped forward. She speaks with truth. The old leader paused, silent for a moment. Then he walked to the pillar and placed his hand on it. The core reacted. Elder Garl confirmed. Historical connection verified. Ravi took a breath. Please, give us a chance. Let us finish the repairs. If we fail, shut the core down again. But if we succeed, you save your home. The chamber went quiet. Then Elder Garl nodded slowly. One chance. He turned to Neera. You carry no arms, but you carry the will of your people. Show us what that means. Neera stepped beside Ravi. Together they returned to the interface, the cow. Elders watched in silence as the final test began. Blue light filled the room, heat controls activated, gravity pulses reset. Wind balance was corrected. One by one the warnings disappeared, and then final command accepted. Core stabilization complete. Ravi laughed out loud. We did it! Neera's face glowed with quiet joy. She didn't speak, but her soft smile said everything. Elder Garl stepped forward again. He looked at the human, then at the young woman who had no arms, but strength stronger than most. "You have reminded us of something we forgot," he said. "That true power does not come from shape. It comes from heart, from choice." He looked at Ravi. "And you, human, you showed us not. All who come from the sky bring danger." Ravi nodded. "And you showed me that strength looks many different ways." The elders left slowly, giving the two space. Ravi sat down, finally resting. Neera sat beside him. He looked at her. "You stood before your leaders. You didn't argue. You didn't beg. You just showed them the truth." Neera spoke softly. "Truth speaks louder than fear." Ravi smiled. In that moment, he knew Neera was not only brave, she was a leader. The moon had a chance now, and so did their friendship. The sky darkened earlier than usual that day. A strange storm was forming, faster than anyone expected. Ravi and Neera felt it deep inside the core chamber. The old machines began to hum louder, and the air grew heavy. "We must hurry," Ravi said, looking at the flickering lights on the control panels. "The core is unstable." Neera nodded and moved to her station. The flexible device they built was ready. She placed her mouthpiece carefully and curved her tail around the control sensors. Ravi sat at his console, fingers ready. Outside, the wind began to howl. Strange flashes of light danced across the sky. The solar storm had arrived. Suddenly, alarms rang through the chamber. "Warning, core temperature rising. Gravity fluctuation detected. Structural integrity at risk." Ravi's heart pounded. "This is it," he said. "We have to stabilize the core now, or the moon could collapse." Neera's eyes were steady. Together, they began the process. Ravi tapped and adjusted switches, watching numbers and graphs climb and fall. Neera pressed her mouthpiece gently, her tongue moving with precise control. Her tail tapped sequences that she had memorized perfectly. The core pulsed faster. The floor vibrated beneath them. Ravi glanced up. "The gravity system is fluctuating too much. If it breaks, the whole surface will tear apart." Neera worked faster, eyes locked on the screen. Her mouth moved in sharp, confident motions. She adjusted the heat regulators, cooling the core just enough to stop the rising temperature. But the system still faltered. Suddenly, a power surge shocked the controls. The lights flickered wildly. The screen flashed red. Ravi's hand shook as he tried to keep steady. "We can't lose it now." Neera bit her lip, pushing through the fear. Her tail struck the emergency reset button, then quickly moved to recalibrate the stabilizers. The core seemed to respond. Slowly, the warnings decreased. The hum became steady again. Ravi exhaled deeply. "You did it. I couldn't have done this without you." Neera smiled softly but didn't look away from the controls. They worked side by side, a perfect team, human hands and Valari mouth and tail moving as one. Outside, the storm reached its peak. Lightning cracked across the sky. The ground shook, but inside the chamber, calm returned. The core's lights changed from red to green. System stable. Emergency protocols engaged. Moon surface secured. Ravi and Neera looked at each other, relief shining in their eyes. "We saved it," Ravi said quietly. Neera nodded. "Together we are strong." They stayed inside the chamber as the storm passed. The calm after the chaos was almost peaceful. Ravi thought about what had happened. Here was a moon, once forgotten and dying. But two different lives, human and Valari, had joined forces. A human with hands, an alien woman without arms, working side by side to save a world. It was more than survival. It was hope. After the storm cleared, they stepped outside. The sky was clear, stars shining brighter than before. Neera looked up and whispered, "New beginning." Ravi smiled. Yes, new beginning. He turned to her. Will you come with me when I leave? She looked at him with soft eyes. I cannot leave my home, but I will always be here, waiting. Ravi nodded, understanding. This is not goodbye. She smiled. No, it is promise. Together they walked back toward the dome, ready to face whatever came next. Days passed after the storm had cleared. The moon's surface felt alive again. Plants slowly reached toward the light. The soft hum of the core pulsed steadily beneath the ground, keeping everything balanced. Ravi and Neera spent their days repairing small systems and learning more about each other's worlds. They had grown close, sharing quiet moments under the silver trees and starry skies. Then, one morning, a bright light appeared in the sky. Ravi looked up, hope filling his heart. A human rescue ship was arriving. Neera stood beside him. She said, nothing but her eyes shone. The ship landed gently on the open field near the dome. A ramp extended, and several humans stepped out, wearing their familiar spacesuits. One of them, a tall woman named Meera, rushed toward Ravi. We've been looking for you, Meera said. We received your last signal. Ravi smiled, relief washing over him. I'm safe, thanks to Neera. Meera turned to Neera with curiosity and respect. Is she the one who helped you? Ravi nodded. Yes, Neera saved this moon and me. The humans and Valari watched each other carefully, but the mood was peaceful. The elders had arrived, too, coming quietly with the people. They stood near the edge of the field, watching the meeting. Elder Garl stepped forward and spoke to the humans in clear English. We thank you for your concern, but this is no longer just a Valari home. It is a place shared by two kinds now. Meera looked surprised but nodded. We want to help, to learn. Ravi turned to Neera. Will you come with me? To Earth? She shook her head gently. This is my home, but I will meet you there one day. Ravi smiled softly. I will come back. I promise. The rescue team prepared to leave with Ravi. He looked at the dome one last time. Neera stood beside him, no arms but strong in every way. He reached out his hand and she touched it lightly with her cheek. A moment passed between them. Words were not needed. Then, as the ship lifted off, Ravi watched the moon grow small beneath him. He thought about the journey ahead, about new friends, old truths, and the power found in unexpected places. Above all, he knew this was only the beginning. The beginning of a story about courage, trust, and a simple truth. Strength is not always in arms. Sometimes it is in the heart.